Common sense buffs. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without some dope content to react to. Once again, we are back in these YouTube streets. I tell myself every week, I'm going to get on a schedule, create more content, I'm going to be more consistent. But as you guys know, sometimes life has other plans. Been very busy with family, been very busy with work. So, my apologies to all 412 of you who are now subscribers of this channel. Appreciate you guys, man. Hopefully, I can redeem myself here with this live show and get back in your good graces. I know I'm coming to you at a time of great alarm. And from the title of this video, I felt like it was time for a family meeting. We got to talk, y'all. I've been reflecting over the last couple of days, again, trying to get on here and just create some content, have a conversation with you guys, which is always available to you in the chat. Just talk about what is going on in Boulder, and what is going on so much that it caused what we saw on the field on Friday night against Houston to happen, right? Now, if you're here after that game, right, or maybe you're a new fan of Colorado, or maybe you're a new detractor of Coach Prime, I don't know if there's ever been a time in Coach Prime's tenure that the vibes have been this low. Colorado is usually this inspiring program that, love it or hate it, you watch it, you enjoy it. It's a vibe, right? And what I'm seeing as I watch various channels, I watch various commentators, I watch reporters, I watch the big sports shows like your ESPNs, your Fox Sports, and analysts with millions of followers. A lot of people are very, very hot now, right? It's hot in here, like Nelly says, right? But before we all go into full meltdown mode, I know for some of y'all, I can't even save y'all. Y'all already melted down. I think we should just take a deep breath and have a conversation. So, Coach Prime always has this saying, and I think a lot of times when people have cliche sayings, there are many of us who don't think that the saying is about us, right? So it's always like when the pastor is in church and he's talking about, don't worry about what your haters got to say. Everybody in the church is like, amen, thank you, Lord, yes, Lord. But sometimes the pastor is talking about you. And Coach Prom always says, fans only blow when you're hot, right? That's a triple entendre. So many meanings there, from the literal to the metaphorical. Fans are very, very fickle. The crowd is very, very fickle, right? So if you want to use a biblical reference, the same people that cheered on Jesus coming into the city were the same people that said crucify him. Fans only blow when you are hot. And no other time has it been truer than what we saw after that Houston game. So tonight, I'm going to just calmly have a conversation about what's going well, what needs to be fixed, and what's absolutely like a four alarm fire. All right. So let's have this family meeting. It doesn't need to turn into a funeral. The season is still early, and this is not the time to panic. Now, I'm here to admit that Houston loss was alarming, right? I don't know what it looks like in the stadium. And you get a kind of a distorted view when you watch games on TV. But there was at no point that I felt that this was the team I expected to see take the field at any point for Coach Prime this season. Now, some of the rumblings had already started to come back up, right? Rumblings like the things that started last season about Pat Shermer's conservative, if you want to call it conservative or terrible or trash or whatever words I'm seeing about Pat Shermer's offensive play calling. Those calls started almost immediately. I think maybe even in the first quarter of that game against Georgia Tech. Pat Shermer is the problem. We have all these weapons in Colorado, Pat Shermer's calling a crazy, his route concepts are boring. You see multiple wide receivers in the same zone. There's no creativity in this offense. Why is he calling bubble screens? Those are all the same things that we were talking about after that loss to BYU in the Alamo Bowl. What I was shocked about in that first game was also the indecisive play of Caden Salter. I mean, almost immediate. It was apparent when you watched it on TV, like, wait, there's something going on here. Either he's not trusting himself, he's not trusting the play calling, but he was very indecisive. Maybe he felt a little bit under the lights that are very, very bright and bolder. But this is the guy who's supposed to be your heralded veteran QB. And almost immediately, just like with Pat Shermer, people started to say, hey, either you're going to take off running, either you're going to be able to hit these wide open passes, or we need to start having a conversation about whether or not you're the guy. And then almost immediately, right? And even Coach Prime said this in the next press conference. He said it's easy to talk about Pat Shermer. It's real easy to talk about Caden Salter. But look at what Haynes King did to our defense. Why is nobody talking about Rob Livingston? Rob Livingston defense has not been able to stop the run the entire season, especially the quarterback run. Now you can make some, hey, well, we've been stopping the running backs. Running backs really haven't rushed for over 100 yards. That doesn't matter if the quarterback can do it. And so I think all of those things coming out from game one and then watching the same thing kind of happening in game two and then watching this really fall apart in game three is definitely a recipe for frustration. As if that wasn't bad enough, here comes the quarterback carousel. All right. Now, here's where it's really getting divisive. And I've really never seen the Colorado Buffaloes fan base become divided one against another. But when this quarterback carousel thing started to become an issue, and this was sparked off with Caden Salter, like I said earlier, a little bit of indecision in that first game. It opened the floodgates for where people wanted to see Juju Lewis in game two. And Prime kind of added to this because he guaranteed that Juju was going to see the field. And, Caden Salter had two drives. The offense wasn't really clicking. They did score 10 points early on in that Delaware game. And then we see Caden Salter get pulled out of the game. Now, some people are saying, hey, Coach Prime, if you were going to play Juju, you should have let Caden play a majority of the game and then let Juju play maybe to close out the game, late third and all of the fourth quarter. But I'm telling you guys, there was a reason. And I hate when people pretend like they didn't see what everybody in real time was seeing, that there was something just a little bit off about how Caden Salter was approaching the game. There was still that indecision that you thought you may have seen something a little bit different from him in game two versus game one. Now, if you guys disagree with me, again, this is a community, this is a conversation. I would love to hear your perspective in the chat, and I'll take what you put in the chat and include it in this live. So please do not hesitate. But I felt like, the crowd could sense it. I felt like the other players could sense it. And again, with the weapons that you have on the outside, a quarterback that can beat you with their legs and their arm, I felt like those guys on the outside weren't being utilized because it was almost as if Salter was having tunnel vision. So in comes the 5-star, Juju Lewis, who everybody wanted to see. He only got 2 series, but what you could immediately tell was, hey, this kid is young. He's 6 foot, 6 foot, maybe 6'1" if you really want to stretch it out. He's maybe 170 pounds soaking wet. Do you know what kind of disaster you would have on your hand playing this kid and trying to get him to play an entire game against Delaware, and somehow he gets his ankle rolled on or something happens to him? I mean, if he's really the heir apparent, do you want to put him in a situation where he could get potentially hurt against a Delaware. Talk about calls for a coach's job. Are you serious? I'd rather win the game with Ryan Staub than get the future franchise quarterback that I probably spent a lot of money to try to get on my team hurt against Delaware. Young man, if you could drive the ball down the field, I'll let you drive it. I'll give you two drives to get it done, but I gotta pull you. There's a lot of time left in this season where I could get you some playing time, but the only way that's really gonna happen is if Caden Salter was leading this offense in a way where they were putting up a lot of points and you could put Juju in against a team that was basically out of the game. So for some people who said no 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 no, you should have played half the game, you should have got, listen, anything can happen in a game like that. You certainly don't want to risk the future of your team against Delaware. Now, if we were talking about it's not going well for your starting quarterback, your true backup, who in my opinion is Ryan Staub, is not getting the job done. And it's really against all odds. And you really need to have a last ditch effort. And you really think this kid is ready to save the day. That's the only real scenario I see Juju coming in this season, really, guys, honestly. Right? I don't know about you guys, but you just don't wear your best watch everywhere. Right? You certainly don't wear your best watch to the Delaware game. All right. Maybe in the final game against, like, hey, CU is 9-2 and you're battling out and one of your quarterbacks go down and Juju has to be the hero, maybe then. But I didn't really see it being worth it against Delaware. All right, DZA, is it Dizza Digital, says Caden looked nervous for his first big game. Plus, after the game, he said he was sick. Yeah, I mean, he could have had a flu game though, right? He could have had a Jordan flu game, but it didn't work out that way. And to your point, I think that you could tell, man, you could tell when a guy's eyes are real big and it's just not clicking for him. All right. So who comes in? I'm not going to wear my best watch at Delaware. So I put in my, my everyday, the workout watch, right? I'm willing to get it muddy. I'm willing to get it dirty. And plus, I needed a spark. I've been around my spark plug for 3 years. I know I could put this kid in. He's going to be competent. He knows the system. So in comes Ryan Staub, right? So Ryan Staub then does something almost miraculous. He kind of saves the day, right? Because that game was really close by the time that he came in. And what he looked to do was be the key to the enigma that is the Pat Shermer's offense. At least against Delaware, that's the way it looked. So he comes in, he's hitting passes down the field. We finally see JoJo Williams making plays. We finally see Sincere Brown, a guy we've all been looking forward to seeing. And we have a savior complex, right? It was looking so shaky that we were ready for a savior. Martin Luther Staub coming in to save the game. Beautiful story, right? All the press. It's on ESPN. The third string quarterback is going to save Colorado. Still preserving your Rolex, putting in a guy who you think, from what he's shown you so far, might be the guy who carries you through. Now, immediately, people are like, nah, you can't do that to Caden. We know he really hasn't played. We know he's missed wide open receivers. We know he looks hesitant. We know he hasn't used his legs. But that's why you brought him here. Why are you going to bench him now? You're going to mess with his confidence. But Prime, being who he is, made the decision he did because he thought the Delaware Magic was going to also be what we saw in Houston. Well, listen, the Houston Cougars they didn't put the brakes on, they beat the brakes off, right? And all that momentum came to a screeching halt. So is this a quarterback controversy, or are we now looking at an official quarterback crisis? Let me know in the comments. Now, what's the difference between a quarterback controversy or a quarterback crisis? I kind of on a bad days, I characterize it as a crisis. On my good days, I characterize it as a temporary controversy. Here's what it looks like on a bad day. Ryan Staub is not going to be the guy to play the next 9 games for this team and lead them to a winning record. But you can't go back to Cade Salt because he has the wrong type of chip on his shoulder. Not a chip that says, oh, I've reflected on this and I think, yeah, I kind of didn't put my team in the best position to win, but rather I should have never been benched and I ain't really feeling this situation. So either you come back crawling to me or I'm going to just check out. Now, one of the things maybe preventing Caden from going on the worst case scenario, and this is not even a call to his character as a person. I'm not making an accusation that he would do this. I'm just playing this out, like I said, when I'm really heads in hand, like this season is over. The thing that kind of works well for both Caden not to go in that direction, not to have to deal with a quarterback who wants to do that, is because this is Caden's last year. So that would be the crisis situation to me. But I don't think we're quite there yet. I think we had a controversy. I think it was temporary based on what happened to Houston, and we got to keep that carousel from spinning out of control. All right? So that's the quarterback situation. I'll get to the rest of my analysis in just a second. So Dizza Digital says we should be 3-0, but as a whole, a lot of these guys are playing nervous because they never played in a light so bright. I couldn't I can't disagree with you on that, man. I listen, a lot of people say they want to be famous. A lot of people say they want the spotlight, but only when you really experience what that life is like do you truly understand the kind of pressure that is on the Colorado Buffaloes every single week. And that pressure is actually invited. And Prime has his saying that, hey, we don't feel pressure, we apply pressure. Well, this is a different team. The team that applied pressure, the team that could have the media spotlight, and none of that stuff really bothered those guys. All of those guys are in the NFL right now. The Travis Hunters of the world who could every week, people could tell him, hey, you can't play wide receiver and cornerback in the NFL. Who always has something to say about his girlfriend and his relationship and whether or not he should marry her. And then he would hear all of this stuff and be able to go out there on Saturday and do incredible stuff. Not everybody's built like Travis Hunter. Shador, right? Chains on, guys telling him it's he's playing daddy ball. He can't play, he can't make decisions. Now everybody's like, oh my God, we did not realize who Shador or what Colorado had in Shador Sanders. He was actually winning in spite of the issues that they had offensive line, no running game, Pat Shermer's offense, right? But now we're at a point where it's no longer just Coach Prime's detractors that I'm hearing have doubts about his coaching ability. I'm hearing this from supporters and some diehards, and they're really like, speaking of Coach Prime having a short leash with his quarterback and pulling people and yanking people and rotating, these fans have a short leash with Coach Prime. Like, you need to get this fixed and fixed ASAP because we're starting to have doubt. And like a real levee about to break, the criticism isn't coming from the outside, y'all. It's coming from inside the house. And fans who are all in, I mean, all in fans. Oh, this is going to be, we going to the Big 12 championship. We're about to go to the college football playoffs, are now the same fans who are asking themselves, can Coach Prime and his staff get this fixed? Because if they don't, and they show up with another Houston after another Houston, we are staring down the barrel of a 2-10 season. I'm telling y'all, Houston was that bad, and you guys know it. in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. I appreciate you. Digital. Hopefully you're subscribed. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content, sitting back on your Monday night. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I pray all is well with you and your family. Thank you so much for being here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 1,000 followers. All right, so let's pump the brakes, just like they beat the brakes off of us, right? Yes, the concerns are real, right? And yes, we have cracks in the foundation that need fixing. We need to fix our offensive creativity. Now, some of y'all are like, yo, you can't fix some stuff you can't fix. Like, you can fix the transmission, but sometimes you just got you a lemon in your offensive coordinator. All right, I don't know. That's Coach Prime's call. Ultimately, he's the one who hired him. He's the only one who could fire him. He's the only one who sees the offensive game plan. He's the only one who knows where the blame truly lies. You guys are like, oh, nah, QB confidence is out the window. When you pulling and rotating QBs, you can't do that. Well, we need to fix QB confidence if that's an issue. But the one thing I know for sure as a former football player that you absolutely have to fix on this team is their defensive toughness. This defense is not tough at all. I mean, the whole season through 3 games, I maybe heard 2 or 3 hits that I could actually hear uh, as I was watching the game on TV. But even with all of those issues, I'm not quite ready to panic. This is only game 3, y'all. So that's why we're calling this family meeting. So cooler heads can prevail. Hopefully, you're going to represent that cooler head in the circles where you are on other channels, in other conversations, in other discords, or other chats. And I'm going to give you some of those reasons why I think cooler heads should prevail. One, because this season is far from over, and I am not in the habit of writing obituaries in week 3. That is not what the team needs. You guys know that these kids watch this stuff. You know that they read this stuff. You know that there are enough people out there who are telling them it is over. There needs to be few voices of reason, a little bit of light in the darkness that they can hold on to. And hopefully, this is going to be the type of community that we build here. Yes, levying criticism where it's necessary, but also recognizing that these are young men trying to do something that is very difficult. So let's see if Coach Prime is going to adjust this week as the Colorado Buffs host Wyoming, I think it's the Cowboys, at Folsom Field. There's no better feeling than coming back home, especially as after a butt whooping like that. I would not want to be going back on the road. So that's the first thing that's working in their favor. After a road loss, when you're licking your wounds, you get a chance to come back home where you're hopefully playing in front of a home crowd that's going to give you that 12th man effect and really boost their morale. But here are a few of my recommendations. First, Coach Prime has to start Caden Salter against Wyoming. If Houston proved any one thing, and they proved a lot of things that game, Ryan Staub is a serviceable backup quarterback who can give you a spark when you need it, not to start a game, but somebody who could come in as kind of like a relief pitcher when necessary. I'm not saying by starting Caden Salter, all of the issues and concerns that Salter showed early in the season are not going to rear their ugly head, but I don't think you necessarily pull him in that situation. I think the good thing that we learned is that if it's like a break glass in case of emergency, we don't really need to panic if we break glass because we have a serviceable backup who could hand the ball off, who could run the offense decently, but he's not the guy that is going to take you to a, in my opinion, winning season or anywhere close to a Big 12 championship. That guy, despite what has happened up until this point, is Caden Salter, and it's primarily because of his dual threat ability. he gives them the best chance to win games at the power forward level. Let me know if you agree or disagree. My man Dizza Digital is killing it right in the chat. Appreciate you hanging in there with me, my brother. He says the former CU players and alums are jealous and never like Prime anyway. Yeah, I mean, again, you have to remember Prime is such a unique, I don't want to call him a character. He's just such a unique person, man. He has his own style. He's unapologetic. And if you don't agree with his style, because most of this is not about Coach Prime's substance, let's get that clear. Coach Prime is most despised not because of his substance, it is truly because of his style. And one of my favorite quotes is, you can't have style without substance. Have you ever seen people who try to get style by only wearing name brand? Name brand doesn't give you style, ma'am. Name brand doesn't give you style, sir. Substance gives you style. Coach Prime's style is based on his substance. He's done this. He continues to do this. But his detractors usually have a problem with his style. And I think that's what Shador is suffering from in Cleveland. It's not the substance, it's not his character, it's the fact that he has his hat on backwards. But that's the world that we live in. All right. Now, second thing, after deciding that Caden is going to be your guy, is that he just needs to decide who the other starters are going to be and ride with them. Rotations should only happen when a guy taps his helmet asking for a breather. Consistency is what builds chemistry. And right now, this team does not have any chemistry, guys. There's no chemistry on this team because there's no consistency. Now, if you guys watch Well Off, if you watch Reach the People, what has been Coach Prime's word of the week? Sometimes it's real easy to give advice to other people, but sometimes it's real hard to take your own advice. And that's really the challenge here. If Coach Prime expects consistency from his players, he has to look in the mirror because he's committed to doing this and doing some soul searching. He needs to find consistency that builds chemistry. All right, let's keep going. So here is my lineup that I would love to see against Wyoming. At quarterback, Caden Salter. At running back, Simeon Price, who I think has been our most productive running back. And then when you go into your two back sets, DeKalen Taylor. If Simeon Price taps his helmet, of course, we're bringing in Michael Welch, the outstanding sophomore. Finding some groove between a Simeon Price to Kalen Taylor 1-2 punch in the backfield is going to be essential. At wide receiver is where I'm going to create some controversy here, guys, so I hope you're ready. Omarion Miller, if he's healthy, alongside Joseph Williams, and guess who I'm starting in the slot? None other than Isaiah Hodge in the slot. I know that's controversial, but after 3 games, I just haven't seen Draylon impact the game the way I thought he would. Of course, I think he could always rotate in, but Hodge, even in his limited action, has shown he can make plays, especially in a Pat Shurmur offense where you need a very elusive guy in the slot if you are going to throw those bubble screens. All right, Dizza Digital says, I don't think he benched Salter. I think he saw Houston as a cupcake. And he says it was it as a way to give Staub some reps. Yeah, well, sometimes we all make mistakes, right? We fall down, but we get up. Now, so that's my starting 3 for wide receiver. Next up, of course, our All-American. I think he's going to be an All-American this season. Jordan Seaton, Xavier Hill, Zarian McGill, Zy Chrysler, and Larry Johnson if he's healthy. But if not, I saw that Roy got a lot of reps this week at right tackle. Now, this group as a whole fixed one issue last year, but there is an issue that persists. The issue that they fixed and they're doing an excellent job of is pass protection. Okay. Well, we have a solid foundation to build on, but we definitely need to get better in the run game. Now, who would I start on my defense? First of all, I don't trust our front seven. They are not gap sound, they don't get a push, and they are not aggressive. So my question to Robert Livingston is that if that is the reality of your defense, why are you having your corners and your DBs turn their back playing man to man, knowing that you can't stop the run? By the time those DBs turn around or react and know that it's run, the runner is usually at the first down or at an explosive play level of 20 yards or more. That would be my first kind of adjustment. Hey, if we can't stop the run, then we don't need to be turning our back to the line of scrimmage. We'll line up, we'll play zone, we'll force these quarterbacks to beat us with their arm, but you're not going to be running and having career days as a quarterback, as a running game against the Colorado Buffaloes. That's a decision that only Robert Livingston can make. All right. Um, so let's talk about these defensive starters. Here's my lineup. Edge rusher, I think you have to stay with Arden Walker and Keaton Wade, even though Keaton Wade is having some consistency issues in terms of keeping contained. And then I love what I saw from the outstanding freshman, Alex McPherson. I love what I saw from London Merritt, or I've seen from London Merritt so far. And of course, Quincy Wiggins in that rotation as well. Interior D line, you just got to stick with Anquin Barnes and Tavian Coleman. I had high hopes for a few other players who now I've moved to rotational pieces, including Tawfiq Thomas, Amari McNeil, and Brandon Davis Swain. I think that BDS needs to be more limited. He still needs a lot of experience. The only way you can get experience is by playing, but I would give a lot more reps to Tavian Coleman in the middle. I think depth is key there for that defensive line, but I think they really need to be able to get a push up front if they intend to stop the dominance that they've been dealing with from other teams. Linebacker is by far the most concerning group. And just as much as I appreciate what Shador was able to do last year, now I appreciate Levanta Bentley and Nakai Hill Green even more because of what they were able to do in Rob Livingston's defense last year. But so far, I can trust Martavius French to be a guy that can consistently play sideline to sideline. And I think I would love to pair him with Sean Meyer on a more consistent basis because Sean Meyer has the speed to spy on mobile quarterbacks, which we'll be seeing a lot of quarterback run this season. At corner, I'm honestly praying for the return of RJ Johnson. I think pairing him with DJ McKinney has been our best combination so far. Makari Vickers got his first start, but he struggled a little bit, and I felt like they just picked on him at some point. They knew they were either going to beat him or he was going to get called for pass interference because a lot of these guys, when they're young like that, don't trust their technique. And then so far, my defensive player of the game for the Houston game, who I think is going to find some consistency going forward, is Mr. Tawfiq Bayard. And I would pair him with Ben Finiseth. Now, Ben was nowhere near on my starting list of safeties for this team. I always thought it was going to be Stoutmeyer and Bayard, but I think Ben has outplayed Stoutmeyer, and I think Stoutmeyer is dealing with some injuries right now anyway. So those are the folks who I would start, and I would just ride with that team, guys. I would rotate occasionally if a guy needs a break or a guy gets hurt, but all of this pulling players out is not going to be conducive to building chemistry. Thank you so much to There's a Digital. My man has been holding me down in the chat. Thank you so much for all of you who has joined me on this live stream. Go ahead and hit that like button so more like-minded people can catch up with this content. Guys, I'm going to try to be more consistent, but life sometimes, and I'm not always available to record. But I'm going to try to come back here ahead of this Wyoming game and have a conversation with you. Thank you guys so much for staying with me, hanging in there. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, I really want to say that I feel like we're going to turn this thing around. I know it's 1-2. I know it looks bleak, but I think Caden coming back in, getting the start, featuring the run game a little bit. Would love to see Simeon Price get a few more carries and carry a bulk of the workload when it comes to the running back. I think Isaiah Harge, man, I think is a guy that I'm slipping on, that a lot of people are sleeping on in terms of a spark plug from the wide receiver room. I'd start him over Draylon Miller in a defensive rotation that leans on fresh legs but consistency in the trenches. I think that's what we're really going to need to see in order to get that big win against Wyoming. So now here's my question to you. Who's your starting lineup? Who's your starting quarterback, starting running back, etc.? Put that in the chat. And then just run up the skull, man, like the Buffs, right? Run up the skull, subscribe, like, and this was a family meeting, guys, not a funeral. Let's keep it real, but let's keep it cool and keep some common sense. Till next time, peace.